What's up, yo? We got some more TwoSuns for you. And I do mean two, because this is going to be another twofer video. The next one up that I was going to take a look at is the TS103, which is this guy right here. It's super interesting. But the next one that I have number-wise is the TS111 Baleen. And they have a lot in common, so I figured I would kind of cover them together. First up, both of these are the D2 variants. The 103 here, as far as I'm aware, this is the only variant, but the Baleen here does have an S90V variant that has a marbled carbon fiber rather than this actual patterned stuff here. But otherwise, they're about the same. And I got, the nice real carbon fiber on the front, and then we have basically blackened titanium on the back. And yeah, they're not small knives. Let's see. Yeah, basically like 3 3/4 inch blade for the 103. And the 111 here is, it's about 3.5, I suppose, or just a little bit under. This guy is it seems a little gradual, but it is a swayback. And you can certainly feel that while you're holding on to him. And yeah, I do enjoy this quite a bit. I think I have talked a bit about this guy in a previous video. But figured I'd bring it back because, well, these kind of have the same kind of design aesthetic and materials and everything going on. I'm assuming they were probably designed right around the same time from Night Morning. By the way, they are both Night Morning designs here. So yeah, one thing that I have noticed specifically about the 103 here that probably won't affect a whole lot of people, but the particular geometry that we got going on with the blade here, where you basically have the saber grind here, but you also have it coming, maybe a swedge-like thing, sort of thing on the spine there. That makes it very, very difficult for any clamp-based systems like the KME or the Lansky or anything like that to actually get a hold of that. So it is a little bit restrictive in that one particular way. That's obviously not going to affect everybody. And I'm perfectly happy to keep this thing with a convex edge on from my work sharp, because, well, that works fantastically. So the ergonomics are going to be a little bit different between these two, obviously, as this is kind of a swayback. So you are going to feel that kind of coming up a little bit into your hand here. This guy, it's a little bit more neutral in that way. I mean, obviously this is coming down instead of pointing back up there. But yeah, this really does remind me of a spike type knife. There's quite a few other ones that I have that I've taken a look at. There was the Harns Assassin. There's the Artisan Cutlery Shark. And I'm probably missing one from Free Tiger or something like that. It is a very slender blade. Very kind of with a focus on piercing capability. It's a good pig sticker, I guess, if you're really kind of looking for something with a lot of poking power to it. And yeah, generally it does have a little bit of weight on there. Generally, I do like knives to be just a little bit taller, but this does make it thin this way in the pocket, because it's obviously doesn't have the blade coming out all bulbous like Next up with that we'll talk about here is the carbon fiber is fairly contoured. You can certainly see where the pattern changes as they kind of curve that to either side. And yeah, it's got that standard, not gloss polish, but fairly high polish to it. So yeah, it feels a bit chalky, like a lot of carbon fiber end up does. And yeah, it's very quality. I don't have any voids going on any of these. TwoSun is very, very good at dealing with their carbon fiber. Next up, the other side of this, you can see there's a whole bunch of micro milling going on. You got some here up here at the top, and then you got it going down here at the bottom. I do not know exactly what kind of coating that they've ended up putting on this to blacken it. Generally, that's not going to be a standard anodization. Black really isn't that much of an option when you're doing that sort of stuff. So I don't know exactly what they've used for that. Pretty difficult to actually kind of figure that sort of stuff out when communication isn't super easy with the company. But yeah, it seems to be fairly durable. So it's not just a standard black paint or anything like that. You can certainly see that with the machine lines and everything like that, that it's not just some weird coating. This is some sort of thing. I don't know if it might be PVD or something like that. I don't really. It certainly has a nice smooth feeling to it. So it's definitely not going to be DLC or Diamond Like Carbon or anything like that. But it does a very good job, and it matches with the carbon fiber quite nicely. Next up on this guy, very subdued pocket flipper on this, which I tend to like quite a bit. It's I don't necessarily have the giant issue with the pocket packing that some other reviewers really like to complain about this, but this certainly keeps it to a minimum without notching the blade in to be able to inset that flipper a little bit. Despite the small size there, though, very, very effective. It's got a decent jump to it. It's rounded off a little bit, so it's not just going to absolutely grab and rip your flesh, but very, very positive as far as the purchase you get on there when you're trying to flip them open. You can end up trying to fail it, but you have to try. That's basically me using the pad of my finger and applying as little force as possible to do that. But, it is very, very easy to deploy anytime you actually want to deploy it. So there you go. The only thing that would actually make me a little bit happier on the outside set of this stuff, and yeah, it is a little bit more manufacturing intensive to do so, would be to have the frame lock notch on the inside. It just makes things cleaner on the outside here. Obviously that's going to carry over with the 111 Baleen here as well. This guy does take up a considerable bit wider stance in your pocket, and the pocket flipper on it is obviously quite a bit more protruding. It works just as well. And I do kind of like the little hole that they got in the flipper tab. Just a little visual flair sort of thing there. But yeah, between the two of them, if you are really concerned about how wide a pocket flipper is going to be in the bottom of your pocket, then out of the two of them, this one will probably suit you a little bit better. You can see that they are basically a bit different as far as the carbon fiber weave pattern that's going on, but they both technically are a woven pattern. This one has that same polished kind of feel to it, where it has a nice chalky feel to it without feeling weird and gross like a chalkboard, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, up on the top, you can see we have a little bit different sort of things going on here, but both of these back spacers are titanium. You have much more crenellation style kind of thing going on the swayback Baleen here, and this one you have a little bit more subdued kind of arrow look to it. You have a little lanyard hole in the back there, and this is just a little bit more visual and easier to kind of blow things out or whatnot. But yeah, it kind of goes skinny instead of remaining flush with the back there, just a little bit. Yep. What I do like, yeah, is this guy, the 111, kind of incorporates the lanyard hole / loop or whatever into the side there. It just kind of keeps it nice and clean on the front. You don't have additional holes punched in it that you most likely won't be using. However, you know, the folks out there who do like their lanyards really like their lanyards. So yeah, we'll go ahead and pop one of these guys open. You know what? I'm actually going to start with this one because there is one extra thing about this that I would like to talk about here on the inside. So yeah, we got the 2 back spacers here that use T8 hardware. And the pivot screw, which is also T8. Alright, so we can pop that open, and yeah. So yeah, on the carbon fiber side, we have a steel bearing race that actually has the groove kind of cut up in there. That's the back spacer here. We do have over travel stop basically built into the steel. There we go. Yeah, into the steel insert there, so that it does a little bit better job there. And here's something that I really do like is the pocket clip is mounted from the back, which I do like. You know, I have a few that are like that, but this is certainly a premier one of theirs like that. And for TwoSun, what's also interesting is this is a you know, titanium milled pocket clip like they do on many of them, but it has more than one screw on there, which they kind of dropped the ball on that a little bit with a lot of other ones, this one included here. I do prefer having more than one screw on a clip. These are T8s as well inside here. So the only thing you would need a T6 for is if you, for whatever reason, wanted to remove the steel insert there. But, you know, now that we have this open, you can see there's not much in the way of skeletonization going on here whatsoever. And it's perfectly fine for what this is designed for. It's, you know, nice with the balance, so they didn't really need to necessarily. And it's not a super heavy knife, but, you know, if that's something that you certainly look for, and I generally do when I'm popping things open, just to see what's going on, then yeah, this guy doesn't really have skeletonization going on there. But yeah, I mean, you know, as with all of them, they got the ceramic bearings and the nylon cages, which is great. I don't really have any problems with that arrangement. The pivot is not D-shaped. I'm actually going to pull that out because that will go on the carbon fiber side here. So yeah, it's not a D-shaped pivot, which I would like to see, but you know, some of their more recent ones certainly have been. So you know, they are improving. There's my other bearing here. This is the blade stop pen here. So you don't have that internal on the blade like they've done with quite a few others. But yeah, super easy to take apart, do any maintenance that you want to do, and kind of zip them back up. I really actually do like the look of the of clips being mounted on the inside of a liner or a frame. Kind of actually reminds me of the aesthetics of some of the original Spyderco Clip-It sort of styles where they were straight up molded into the side of the FRN. Or it just kind of has that clean look, but obviously this is going to be a lot stronger than your standard FRN is going to be. There we go. Yeah, super easy to get them open and everything. The blade stock on this thing is actually fairly considerable. Let's see. How about if I actually grab my instrumentation? I have measured these before, but I don't exactly have that information directly in front of me. So, alright, millimeter wise, we are basically rocking, it's basically 3.8. That's what I would measure that at the spine. So not exactly super thin, but their grinds on these guys, as well as many of their others, come down to a nice fine point. So you do have a decent amount of slicing capability with this. And because it has basically this saber kind of grind on here, this one's easy enough to clamp onto any of your clamp-based sharpening systems. So, yeah, I mean, if that's something that you worry about, like I kind of did a little bit, then, that's certainly an improvement there. And it's basically just a little over half an inch wide, which is very kind of average sort of thing going on here. This one's probably going to be right around the same, just slightly wider. And yeah, the blade stock is basically the same on this one at 3.8. Turn that guy off. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and take a look on the inside. This one you do actually have to remove the clip because it is screwed into one of the two support pillars. But otherwise, just as easy to take apart. There we go. Yeah, you can see it grips in there. This is something that I'm kind of okay with. When you have a pocket clip that's actually, not a circular shape, that's also a part of that's sunken into or inset into titanium, perfectly fine with. I would still personally like to see more than one screw, but that's fairly stable. I have seen a lot of other things that will kind of do this same sort of thing, but they will inset it into G10, or God forbid micarta, which they've actually done in one of them. That's a very bad thing because it has a lot of problems with keeping the pocket clip from not swaying side to side or whatever and getting loose and whatnot. So yeah, same thing here. We got one screw for the steel insert. Whatever, works perfectly fine. We have a little bit of the divot there for the for that little lanyard cutout area. But yeah, no skeletonization going on there at all. but we can see this groove up here. And that's going to be on both sides because this one, the blade stop pin, is incorporated into the blade rather than being pinned through. So the construction on this one is actually quite a bit different. But the end result is fairly darn similar. There we go. Yep, no skeletonization or anything going on the carbon fiber side. Generally, I wouldn't consider that to be something that you should probably even worry about or want to do. But, you know, I guess if you particularly wanted to, then it's possible, because this does have enough thickness in that particular way for it. But yeah, so it's very, very easy to maintain this one. Something to keep in mind with this guy, as I notice that it's a little bit out of frame here, is the fact that this one, the two pillars on them are quite different lengths. That's because the one on the back has to go through there and allow space for the pocket clip. So they're not kind of interchangeable as they are on this guy in particular, which they're basically the exact same. But, I mean, it's incredibly obvious which direction something needs to go in. It's not something where, oh, it's only like a millimeter difference between the two of them, so you won't notice for a while that some things ain't right. Speaking of something being ain't right, I let that go. So there we go. Yeah, I just shoved it back in there. But because of that, I shall place that one on first. A lot of times when I'm putting these back together, I will keep my finger on the other side of a post like that, just to make sure that it doesn't slip out. But yeah, this guy has all sorts of back together. Maybe just a little slight bit of blade play there. Now there's absolutely none. Yeah, these guys are super solid. I was quite impressed. The Baleen was the first one that I ended up getting, as I failed to deploy there. And liked it quite a bit. Like I said, I do think I've featured this on the channel before. But a little bit later, these started to kind of pop up a little bit again on eBay, and I decided to pick one of those up because I noticed that, well, they're very similar design-wise. The blades on both of these guys, like I was saying, they both kind of come down to a fairly thin edge. This guy is actually a little bit thicker behind the edge than Mr. Wharncliffe over here, which I think probably makes a little bit of sense, just because they want a lot of that structural rigidity for the extra piercing capability, because the Wharncliffe isn't exactly designed for piercing, so they are just a little bit slightly different there. But yeah, they got. Oh, yeah. So this guy doesn't really have any jumping going on the back side whatsoever, whereas the 103 here does. So they're a little bit different. This one's not uncomfortable to use by any stretch of the imagination, but generally, like I was just saying, you don't usually do a lot of forward pushing cuts with a Wharncliffe. You're doing a lot more dragging, or shoot, what's the word I'm looking for that? you know, that cut, whatever, pull cuts or whatnot. So you generally don't need that that jimping there because you're not really worried about sliding forward or getting a lot of downward pressure because you're generally going to be using it a little bit different. So there you go. Both of these guys make me super happy. I've enjoyed using both of them. You can tell that you know, I have used them a little bit. This guy does have a V edge on him from the Worksharp Precision Edge. I don't believe I really polished super fine the edge on it, but it's, you know, it is still very much capable. It's just not, you know, mirror shiny. And like I said, this one, I'm unable to really get a clamp on it. I can get a clamp on it, but at that point, with the blade being as thin as it is, I would have to sharpen it at like an angle pretty close to like 20 or 22 degrees. I don't want that. This is D2, and I'm comfortable with these being at a 17-degree angle. So this one I'll keep at that convex edge from the Worksharp Canonian Edition with blade grinder attachment. Alright, so about the only other thing that I could really think of that I hadn't covered yet is the weight on these guys. So let's go with the 103 first here. And let's see, we got 102 grams going on there. What is that in the wacky American one? We got 3.6 ounces. There we go. So yeah, then we got the Baleen, which is 3.475 or 98.5. So this guy is actually just a little bit lighter. And I suppose that does make a little bit of sense. Like, you know, the blade does look like there's a little bit more there, and it might be a little bit more substantial tall-wise, but this guy still does have a good, you know, almost half an inch on him. So, yeah. So they're a little over that ounce an inch mark that a lot of people end up kind of looking for. And they could probably get even closer to that if they did skeletonized the titanium a little bit. But as they are, I'm perfectly happy with them. This guy, there you go. There's the balance point for him. You know, so it's kind of behind the flipper. So yeah, if you're actually doing that full grip there, it's just slightly handle heavy. And this little deuterino is basically right there where your finger is. The one thing I have noticed is because this one's just a little bit shorter, the handle does feel shorter. Now it does come up and kind of grab you in your hand and everything like that. So you certainly do get you know, a full 4 fingers on there. But I feel much more comfortable with my thumb being a lot farther forward if I'm holding it in this kind of stance. Stance wasn't the right word. Grip. Which could, like, you know, block you a little bit if you're trying to force yourself through some tall media, if you're cutting, you know, long cuts of cardboard or whatnot. But yeah, like I usually say, a lot of times with a draw cut, I'll end up using a pinch grip sort of thing, or you know, you can get your finger out there and you have a nice wide area for you to actually get there to have some a little bit more fine tip control with it, and that really locks in on the back of your hand, so you have a lot of pressure to kind of slap down there. So yeah, like I said, I think I'd already talked about this one before, but bears repeating, I suppose. That has a lot to do with this guy right here. Both of them are fantastic knives if you can get hold of them for a decent price. I did kind of get a hold of them for a little bit different prices. I do think I end up paying a bit more for this guy here. But I think it was only like about $15 more. So, yeah, if you can get a hold of them for a decent price, then you can certainly do that. Like I had already said, though, this one does have another variant that's essentially the same outside of it using S90V for the blade steel and basically a different pattern of carbon fiber because it's using marbled rather than a full kind of weave sort of thing going on there. But otherwise, the construction and the build and everything is exactly the same on that. Now, as far as how good the S90V is on that, I don't know. I guess it really depends on when it was manufactured, because they've certainly improved their S90V from kind of when they started. I do have a couple of early models in S90V that basically operate like with a cut test right around what D2 would. So at that point, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be able to spend more money on a more expensive steel that isn't treated correctly so that it only works the same as the other steel that the model already came in. So that's annoying, but like I said, they have improved the heat treat on S90V considerably recently, sometime last year, I guess. So I have some Mazwan Mokhtar Fengtooth slip joints, and the first one that I have is in S90V, and the other one is in M390. And those work much better than some of the original ones in S90V. So there you go. Probably not something that's going to affect anybody purchasing stuff new. And that does include, obviously, purchasing them from eBay. Because that is basically their new stock that they're going through with. But if you're looking to trade or purchase on the used market some of their earlier designs, and this one might or might not be in there in the S90V, then I personally don't think it's worth it, because you're just going to have a more expensive steel that's more difficult to sharpen that stays sharp the same amount of time. So there you go. Unfortunately, they're not the only knife company that's actually had issues with heat treat. The most notable that I end up having that's still kind of making me sad is the Blade HQ variant of my Manix 2 XL. This one comes in with CPM M4, and this really doesn't act the way it should. It wasn't super incredibly difficult to sharpen it, which, hey, that's cool. I know M4's got a lot of toughness. Doesn't necessarily make sharpening it a little bit more difficult. That's more or less the wear resistance. But once I have sharpened this, well, I did some cut tests with it, with its original edge, and then with me sharpening the convex edge on there. And both of those were really disappointing. So I resharpened it, and did it again, and yeah, it's not a very... I think the heat treat on this thing, or the Rockwell hardness in general, is probably just really off on this particular guy right there. That's, something I've ranted on before with sprint runs or dealer exclusives that they've only made once or something like that, is if you do end up having a problem like that, like with this guy in particular, for one, unless you actually send it in and they want to spend the time to actually research it, that's not something they really care about. They've already made it, whatever. And the other thing is, even if they have kind of figured, yeah, this is kind of a bunk unit, they can't replace it because they never make the same thing. So the best they could do is possibly give you like a trade-in credit for something else that you probably didn't want. So that makes me a little worried in general. That's why I have basically these two Spyderco Sprint Run or dealer exclusives. This one being the Blade HQ one. This one was from, it started with a D. DLC Trading. Yeah, that was it. This is a PM2 and crewwear. And this one works. Like the blade on this is pretty darn fantastic. So that's good. But yeah, it really hurts when you get an expensive knife that doesn't perform anywhere near what it should. And there's not a whole lot of recourse you can do for that. So that's one reason why, limited supply kind of knives really kind of irk me. I've had this rant before, so I apologize for that. Yeah, I'll shut up before I continue to ramble on more and more and more and more and more and more. But yeah, these two night morning designs are quite fantastic. Feel nice in the pocket. I do like the design language that they got going on there. They're very useful and durable, and I can vouch for the blades that these D2 guys do a dang good job. The last thing that I can think to say, I've probably said it many, many times, but when you have these titanium milled pocket clips, pretty much no company does a deep carry version of them. The reason why, generally, was because you would have to start with a slab of titanium, basically twice as much, and you'd have to mill a lot more away to be able to have that kind of fold over sort of thing going on there. So I understand why they don't do that, but since, deep carry is what's most popular these days, it's worth kind of stating that, a milled pocket clip is more of a luxury, extravagant kind of item, but it does kind of prevent it from being made to have a deep carry profile. So there you go. There's the TS103 that I actually wanted to talk about, and the TS111 Baleen that is also in that same family. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed kind of watching and being along for the whole ride of talking about these and the disassembly and everything. And I appreciate y'all, and hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.